So as talks between the United States and Iran continue to remain stalled, there are conflicting narratives that are coming out from the Trump administration. Days after the U.S. announced Project Freedom to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz, the American President Donald Trump said that he is halting the operation in a bid to reach a deal with Iran. Trump, in fact, made the announcement in a post on Truth Social, saying that he is now pausing Project Freedom following a request by mediator Pakistan and other countries. On the other hand, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the U.S. operation in Hormuz is defensive in nature and that the U.S. will respond if it is attacked first by Iran.
But it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here.
Meanwhile, the American War Secretary Pete Hegseth has warned Iran that any attack on commercial shipping in Hormuz will be met with some kind of a devastating American response. The Pentagon chief said that the U.S. is not looking for a fight, but it will not hold back either if it is attacked.
To what remains of Iran's forces, if you attack American troops or innocent commercial shipping, you will face overwhelming and devastating American firepower. The president has been very clear about this.
Now, the Commons have raised questions about whether there is confusion and there are differences within the Trump administration or the Iran war. Separately, while speaking to the reporters at the Oval Office, Trump accused Iran of playing games and said that Tehran's military has been completely destroyed, leaving them with no option but to plead for a deal with the United States. On the other hand, Iran has signaled that it does not intend to agree to the American demands. Speaking to Iranian media, President Masoud Pezeshkian has accused the United States of pursuing a policy of maximum pressure to force Iran to surrender to its unilateral demands. Pezeshkian asserted that meeting such a demand is simply impossible. The U.S. strategy for now seems to have pivoted away from aggressive military action to choking the Iranian economy with a naval blockade, forcing Tehran to come to the negotiating table and to agree to concessions sought by the United States.
Mr. President, thank you. When Iran is seeing 50% inflation, they've moved money from their sovereign
wealth. Their economy is crashing.
Would you allow their financial system then to fail?
Well, I guess so, because we're making it fail, right?
Is that what it takes?
I hope it fails.
Is that what it takes?
You know why? Because I want to win. No, it takes getting pounded on by the military, I think, for more. But in addition to that, it is failing.
This project steadily progresses. Operation Economic Fury, continues to impose maximum pressure on the Iranian regime and what remains of their already frail economy. Today, inflation in Iran is 70%, and their currency is in total and complete freefall. U.S. sanctions enforcement is stepping up. It's moving in lockstep with the naval blockade to degrade Iran's capacity to generate, to move, and repatriate revenue. It directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines.
And amidst these developments, the big question, of course, is this. Has Iran exposed the limits of America's military power? At the beginning of the war, Trump had claimed that the U.S. will finish the war in 4 to 5 weeks. However, since then, both the timeline and the U.S. objectives in the war have changed very frequently. The retreat on Project Freedom suggests that the U.S. may no longer rely on military moves to try and force a deal. But will this lead to a breakthrough, or will the stalemate linger on, is, of course, the big question. And we earlier spoke with some analysts on the issue. Listen to what was said.
The Iranian leadership have seen this war as an existential war for them, because from the beginning it was using the language of regime change. So they have a lot to lose. Whereas for the US, this is not an existential war. This is a war very far away from its own territory, and ultimately it can walk away with limited ill effect. So there's a difference when it comes to political will.
Well, I do think that it is so that Iran was preparing for precisely this kind of war for decades already, and has developed its armed forces precisely for fighting this kind of war. So even although it is clearly inferior in comparison to United States military power, not to talk about a combined military power of United States, Israel, and United Arab Emirates. It is well prepared for fighting precisely this kind of a war. That means its primary means of fighting this war, this is ballistic missiles and UAVs, are well hidden under the ground.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.